Today is May 21st. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It's a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today on the Big Book, we are going to be reading Chapter 6 in Action, pages 74 through 75. And out of the Personal Stories, Section 2, They Stopped in Time, we're going to be continuing our journey through Window of Opportunity, pages 426 through 429. And finally, in the 12 and 12, we are going to continue our journey through tradition number 4 by reading page 148. So with all that, my friends, hope you're doing well. No coffee this morning, trying to do a little bit of water in the old Spider-Man cup, but other than that, not too bad. Not dragging too bad this morning. Feel good. All right, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, my friends, so if you recall from yesterday, we are at a point where we are talking about step 5. And choosing the right person who we can confess the exact nature of our wrongs to. Choosing that right person. So we're going to expand on that, again, reading pages 74 and 75. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand, yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand and approve what we are driving at, and that he will not try to change our plan. But we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We've written an inventory, and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we've taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We will feel that we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything. For we're building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skipped on the cement put in the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? All right, beautiful stuff here, guys. Definitely come back to this in a minute. So if you recall from yesterday's reading, our friend here is about to go to his first AA meeting and see how things work out for him. Again, this is Window of Opportunity. We're going to be reading pages 426 through 429. I went to my first AA meeting with absolutely no idea what AA was about. I am from a large Irish Catholic family and have had several relatives in and out of the program. AA, like prison, was shameful, however, and was never discussed. I also had no idea what alcoholism was. I remember a girlfriend once told me that her mother had a drinking problem, but that she was not an alcoholic. Curious, I asked what the difference was. An alcoholic, she told me, is someone who needs to drink alcohol every day, even if it is only one drink. A person with a drinking problem does not have to drink every day, but once she starts, she cannot stop. By that definition, I was an alcoholic with a drinking problem. I was surprised by my first meeting. It was in a church, and, whatever I expected, it was not this. The room was filled with well-dressed, smiling, happy people. No rancid coats or 3-day beards, no bloodshot eyes, wheezing coughs, or shaky hands, but laughter. Someone was talking about God. I was sure I was in the wrong place. Then a woman introduced herself and said that she was an alcoholic. I knew then that I was in AA. She spoke about feelings of insecurity replaced by confidence, fear replaced by faith, resentment replaced by love, and despair replaced by joy. I knew those feelings. I had insecurity, fear, resentment, and despair. I could not believe it. Here was a person who was happy. It seemed like a long time since I had seen one of those. After the meeting, people welcomed me with open arms and gave me their telephone numbers. The discussion meeting was followed by a speaker meeting where I had my first awakening in AA. The speaker said, "If you're an apple, you can be the best apple you can be, but you can never be an orange." I was an apple, all right, and for the first time I understood that I spent my life trying to be an orange. I looked around at a room filled with apples, and, if I was understanding the speaker, most of them were no longer trying to be oranges. My progress in AA, however, was slow. I refused to go to meetings outside of my neighborhood, which meant that I went only Tuesday and Thursday nights. I always felt better after a meeting. I remember times when something upsetting would happen on a Friday and I'd tell myself, I wish it were Tuesday so I could go to the meeting. No matter how many suggestions I heard and how many rides were offered, however, I simply would not go to meetings on those other nights. People gave me many other good suggestions as well. They suggested that I stay out of relationships. I was young and single, and I rejected this idea out of hand. For the first year, I bounced from one sick relationship to another. They suggested that I get a sponsor. I had no idea what a sponsor was and was too proud to ask. But I was sure I didn't need one. After all, I was smarter than the rest of these people. They might need someone to tell them how to run their lives, but double vision, neck brace and all, I was doing just fine on my own. People suggested that I find a higher power. I was not fooled. I knew when they said higher power, they meant God. And I knew that God waited for me to step out of line just once so that he could take his revenge. I wanted no part of God. With this resistance, I plodded along for a few months. Whenever people asked me how I was doing, I'd say, fine, just fine, no matter how hard I was crying inside. Then I reached the crossroads. I was sober about 6 months and was not getting any better. I contemplated suicide every day. My emotions swung between paralyzing despair and murderous rage, often in the space of a single moment. I was not happy, joyous, and free. I was miserable, and I was sick of it. I decided I'd had enough. I went to my Tuesday night meeting fully intent on sharing honestly. I arrived at the meeting and no one else was there. This meeting, which routinely numbered 20 people, was empty. I waited for a few minutes and was preparing to leave when a man whom I barely knew walked through the door. He suggested that he and I have a meeting. I was sure it was a bad idea. He asked me how I was doing. That was all I needed. The pain, misery, anger, loss, resentment, and despair came pouring out. For the next 45 minutes, I talked at this man, who continued to nod his head and smile and say, "Yeah, I remember feeling that way." For the first time, I made completely honest contact with another human being. I showed someone who I really was, without fear of rejection. I took an action that was designed to make me feel, rather than just look, better. I was met with acceptance and love. When I had finished talking, he told me something simple. You don't have to drink over it. What an idea! I thought that situations made me drink. If I was angry, I drank. If I was happy, I drank. Bored or excited, elated or depressed, I drank. Here was a man telling me that, independent of my life situation, I did not have to drink. If I stuck with AA, I could stay sober under any and all conditions. He gave me hope, and in many ways he symbolized the door through which I finally walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I began to change. I began to pray. I became actively involved in working the steps. I had previously dismissed them as tools of mental inferiors, but now I embraced them as the rungs on the ladder to salvation. I began working with a sponsor and became active in my home group. I did not understand how making coffee or cleaning up after meetings could have anything to do with staying sober, but older members told me that service would keep me sober. So I tried it, and it worked. My life began to change. Just before my first anniversary, I was readmitted to my college. I arrived back on campus terrified. All I had known there was drinking. How was I ever going to stay sober under these conditions? The answer was simple. I threw myself into AA. Some very loving people took me under their wings. I had the opportunity to perform a fair amount of 12-step work with other students. And by the time I graduated, there was a thriving AA community at that school. All right, my friends, that's all we're going to read today. Great stuff here. We'll definitely be coming back to this tomorrow. And finally, my friends, we are on tradition number 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. So we are going to be reading 148 today. There were, though, a few conservative dissenters among the alcoholics. They wrote the Foundation, AA's headquarters in New York, wanting to know about this sort of streamlining. They understood that the elders, just to nail things down good, were about to apply to the Foundation for a charter. These few were disturbed and skeptical. Of course, there was a promoter in the deal, a super promoter. By his eloquence, he allayed all fears despite advice from the Foundation that it could issue no charter, and that Ventures mixed an AA group with medication and education had come to sticky ends elsewhere. To make things safer, the promoter organized 3 corporations and became president of them all. Freshly painted, the new center shone. The warmth of it all spread through the town. Soon things began to hum. To ensure foolproof continuous operation, 61 rules and regulations were adopted. But alas, this bright scene was not long in darkening. Confusion replaced serenity. It was found that some drunks yearned for education, but doubted if they were alcoholics. The personality defects of others could be cured with maybe a loan. Some were club-minded, but it was just a question of taking care of the lonely heart. Sometimes the swarming applicants would go for all 3 floors. Some would start at the top and come through to the bottom, becoming club members. Others started in the club, pitched a binge, were hospitalized, and then graduated to education on the 3rd floor. It was a beehive of activity, all right, but unlike a beehive, it was confusion compounded. All right, and that's all we're going to read out of the 12 and 12 today. So you can see things certainly get complicated by trying to make this a corporate and over-elaborate thing. And of course, as they said, confusion very quickly took place as serenity. And going back to In Action real fast, I love these 5th steps. I guess you could call them the 5th step promises. And I've experienced these. It is an incredible feeling. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. And this all happened to me. Once we've taken the step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone in perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. That was my fear, like nobody will ever look at me the same if I say this stuff. But I finally dropped that bag of rocks when I did my 5th step, and I felt like this was, as the book says right here, may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we began to have a spiritual experience. I felt after that 5th step that I had on my way home in the car, a spiritual experience. And I remember thanking God for it. So trust me when I say that these promises, they're not fluff. They have definitely happened in my life. And that's why I keep coming back. Sobriety is so worth it. And if you are sober today, my friend, you are a miracle. Thank you so much for joining me in this Lifeboat of Recovery, and we were given another set of 24 hours. I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.